The White House is saying that Mr. Netanyahu's remarks amounted to an official rejection of Mr. Obama's initiative, of international legitimacy, and of international law. Publicly, Mr. Obama reassured Mr. Netanyahu that Israel's security would remain paramount in any American push to resolve the conflict. Our ultimate goal has to be a secure Israel state, a Jewish state, living side by side in peace and security with a contiguous, functioning and effective Palestinian state, Mr. Obama said. Obviously, there are some differences between us in the precise formulations and language, and that's going to happen between friends. The president also joined the Israeli leader in raising concerns about Hamas, the militant faction that controls Gaza but recently agreed to reconcile with Fatah, which controls the West Bank and the Palestinian Authority. Hamas has been and is an organization that has resorted to terror, that has refused to acknowledge Israel's right to exist, he said. It is not a partner for a significant, realistic peace process. Mr. Netanyahu characterized Hamas as the Palestinian version of Al-Qaeda and flatly refused to hold any talks with the Palestinians if Hamas was included. He also emphasized that Israel would not accept the return of Palestinian refugees to Israeli soil, an issue Mr. Obama had suggested should be deferred while the two sides worked on borders and security issues. Everybody knows it's not going to happen, Mr. Netanyahu said, and I think it's time to tell the Palestinians forthrightly, it's not going to happen. Actually, Fatah is no less a terrorist group than its new partner Hamas. Dressing up in a suit and rubbing shoulders with the U.S. and EU won't change that. Nonetheless, that is a formula that has been very effective for Fatah, placing them in a favorable international light. With Turkish President Abdullah Gül calling for Hamas to get in line with international expectations and recognize Israel, I see Hamas making this very painful concession for the sake of ultimately destroying Israel. The Turkish president also said Hamas wanted its recognition of Israel's right to exist to coincide with Israel's recognition of a Palestinian state, adding that citizens across the Arab world would no longer be tolerant of Israel's humiliating policies, the Wall Street Journal reported. A senior U.S. State Department official told Haaretz Friday that U.S. President Barack Obama is disappointed with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's reaction to his Middle East policy, faulting Netanyahu for focusing on the issue of 1967 borders instead of looking at his policy as a whole, and especially the alternative he proposed to the unilateral declaration of a Palestinian state at the United Nations. There were plenty of things in support of Israel, the official told Haaretz, citing Obama's wariness of the recent reconciliation of Hamas and Fatah, his condemnation of terror perpetrated by Hamas, and his call for Palestinians to halt unilateral steps toward recognition. The official added that Obama recognized Israel as a Jewish state, saying that focusing on issue of 1967 borders was missing the point. The official acknowledged that the U.S. president expressed frustration over the way the peace process developed, saying Obama has presented his vision as a way of getting started and a way to avoid in September a repeat of the situation that happened in February, in which the UN Security Council voted on the condemnation of settlements and the U.S. vetoed the resolution. This time we might end up at the General Assembly with 187 countries voting for the recognition of a Palestinian state and 2 against it. He said, adding, it's bad for Israel and it's bad for the United States. Netanyahu's reaction has aggravated the situation, and frankly I don't know how he will get down from this tree. The official clarified that Obama mentioned 1967 borders with territory swaps as a basis for negotiations, not as a final point. We don't see Hamas any differently than Israel does. the official said, adding that the U.S. recognizes that it is a terror organization and is wary of the recent Hamas-Fatah reconciliation. He added, "We cannot exclude an option of negotiation with the Palestinian Authority, pending they accept the quartet conditions." When asked about whether the United States feels they still have leverage over Palestinians who have chosen to circumvent negotiations with Israel and turn to the international community, the official responded that the Palestinians are clearly disappointed, but they should realize that the UN resolution doesn't produce a state, adding they realize they cannot achieve it on their own without using the United States' connection with Israel. The quartet of Middle East peace negotiators from the United States, Russia, the European Union, and the United Nations voiced strong support for Obama's vision of Israeli-Palestinian peace. The quartet agrees that moving forward on the basis of territory and security provides a foundation for Israelis and Palestinians to reach a final resolution of the conflict through serious and substantive negotiations and mutual agreement on all core issues, the group said in a statement. But in light of the fallout of the Obama-Netanyahu meeting, the Palestinians say they will move ahead with their quest to win UN recognition of a state in the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Senior Fatah member Nabil Shouth said late Friday. Shouth noted that Obama didn't threaten a veto. "We still hope that he will not do so, and that he will not stand in our way to freedom and independence, which he called for all of the Arab nations," he said. "I have to believe Obama has no intention of vetoing a UN resolution to recognize the Palestinian state come September. As far as I can see, the U.S. administration has stated their belief that Netanyahu seems to be on a path that is simply not sustainable in the eyes of the world. In my analysis, I believe Israel has three options. 1. Dismiss the UN recognition of a Palestinian state and hold to their existential principles. 2. Go back to the negotiations table and attempt to negotiate a more favorable border deal with a strong security guarantee from not only from the U.S. but the quartet as a whole. 3. Wait and see how the UN vote actually shapes up and if the U.S. actually does stand with Israel. However, this choice could leave Israel with limited options and a Palestinian state based on pre-1967 borders. Come September, it will be interesting to see which path Israel decides to take. But in the end, the Lord will be their ultimate deliverer, and the world will be left wondering what just happened. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.